Okay, sit yourself onto your left and then come into a good cross-legged position. So just come into cross legs, just have a little wriggle about so that you feel that you're sitting evenly on your seat bones, and then hold onto your knees. Lift up into the heart area, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Just look down at the floor, look at something that's not moving, and just spend a little time filling the lungs from the bottom to the top and emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. Just listening to the sound of the breath as it enters and exits. Just softening your jaw and your tongue and your throat. And then bring your hands into Namaste. Lengthen from your armpits into your elbows and allow your eyes to gently close. So inflate the lungs evenly as you inhale, filling both lungs from the bottom to the top. Expanding out into the armpit chest with the expansion of the lungs. Observing that the chest lowers and the ribs relax with the out breath, and the rib cage expands and raises upwards and outwards to accommodate the in-breath. And then very gently draw your chin down to meet the chest, continuing to fill the lungs and empty the lungs. Spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Bring your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And then raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Just hold onto your knees, elevate your heart area up to the ceiling. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. Take a deep inhalation in, and then turn with the exhalation. Using the out breath to intensify the turn. And then come back to the center, lift up into the chest, elevating your heart region upwards. Take a deep inhalation. And then turn to the left, drawing your abdomen and your ribs, the shoulders across. And then come back to the center, lift up into the chest, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. And then just stretch your legs out. Get yourself a belt, stretch your legs out, and just feel that you can push into your heels, pulling your toes back. So if you can have your feet hip width apart to start off with. So just lengthen from the back of the knee all the way down into the calf, and then pull the toes towards you. Have the belt around your knees and try and pull your feet towards the body, but then push the feet into the belt at the same time. And then find that tension gives you a real elevation of the spine. If you transfer the action from the legs, maintaining that action of the legs, but then feel that as you activate the legs, then you can activate the spine. So lengthen consciously from the back of the knee into the heel. From the back of the knee into the heel, pressing the front of the shin down into the floor, turning the front of the shins inwards. So the more you turn the fronts of the shins inwards, the more you turn the inner knees down towards the floor, the more you turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. And then that gives you space in your hips. So if you've got a bad back, just maybe stay at this stage just to protect your back, just working to connect the spine to the legs. If there's no problem with your back, just from that action of turning the thighs and the shins inwards, see if you can come forwards, just leading from the hips, driving the heart area upwards, keeping the shoulder blades drawing in towards the front chest, just a little bit at a time. Coming forward, lengthening the chest up to the ceiling, trying not to allow the abdomen to come down towards the legs. Keep the abdomen drawing up towards the diaphragm towards the collarbone, the heart area lifted at all times. If you can reach around the feet, then reach around the feet, but rather than the tops of the feet, around the sides of the feet, so that it encourages a broadening action of the collarbone. Keep lengthening from the back of the knee into the heel. So really specifically the back of the knee into the heel, stamping the shins into the floor, rotating the shins inwards so that the toes kind of roll in towards each other. Lifting up into the chest. And then gently release. So just as a little experiment, let your feet roll out this way, let the legs roll out this way, and then just gently try and come forwards. And you really quickly come up with resistance. So if you don't do anything with the legs, if you let the legs roll outwards, if the tops of the thighs roll outwards, then you restrict the action of the hips. Just without overworking the legs, just rotate the legs inwards, rotate the thighs inwards, and then just notice that there's infinitely more forward bending capacity, because that turning of the thighs facilitates opening of the hips. So remember that as we come forward. So sit back on your heels. So if you've done a lot of walking, sitting in virasana is a really good antidote. It really solves tired legs. So just sit down into the shins. Just let the body just kind of slump a little into the floor. Just let the shins commune with the mat. Try and feel that the shin makes contact not just at the top of the shin and at the bottom of the shin, but in the middle of the shin. So sometimes that requires, or most of the time, that requires some intervention. So you have to consciously press the shin bone down into the floor, pressing the shin bone into the shin skin, and then just from that action, observe that the legs activate and that you lift up into the chest. So by consciously pushing down into the floor, the rest of the body will raise upwards. So we're coming forward. So we don't want our legs to feel like they're kind of splaying apart. If anything, we want the tops of the thighs to feel like they're rolling inwards. It's difficult in virasana to do that, but see if you can get that feeling of turning those thighs inwards slightly and then come forward. Just stay on the tiptoes as you come forward, maintaining the lift of the chest as you come forward. And then extend your arms away. Push the shins into the floor. Press the toes together. Try and press the tops of the shins into the floor. Almost like you're trying to push the knees apart and you're trying to almost separate the seat bones away from each other. Lengthening forwards, aiming to maintain the contact between the seat bones and your heels. Lengthening your arms away. Just breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. Just come up onto your knees, turn your toes under, and then staying right up on the tiptoes to begin with. Press the palms into the floor. Be right up on the tiptoes. Bend your knees and tilt the seat bones away from the backs of the thighs. Lifting the tailbone up towards the ceiling. And then straighten your legs. Turning the shins inwards, lengthening from the backs of the knees into the heels. Lengthening from the backs of the knees into the heels, pushing the fronts of the thighs in towards each other. Lengthening from the back of the knee into the heel. Now that action makes you drop the fronts of the thighs. So aim to lift the fronts of the thighs really firmly before you activate the backs of the knees down towards the calves. And then see if you can bring your heels just a little bit at a time down towards the floor. So maybe you need to grip the sides of your mat. If this action of the legs makes your hands slide. So it's working really firmly in the legs, but really relying heavily on the grip of the hands. So see if you can lift the fronts of the thighs and lengthen the backs of the knees down into the calves, down into the heels. See if you can bring the heels down, but without without creating creases at the fronts of the shins between the shins and the feet. As soon as you see those, you could, if you can bring the heels all the way down, maybe you just see those creases right at the from the shin to the foot. So see if you can lift the foot and try and encourage those creases to stay away. Breathing even, deep inhalations and exhalations. Okay, step your feet forwards. Just come up into a standing position. Just come into, have your feet as wide apart as your mat, getting ready for uttanasana. Just breathing even, deep inhalations and exhalations. And having a couple of blocks for your hands. So feet as wide apart as your mat, turning your toes inwards, and then just lift up into the heart area. Raise your arms up to the ceiling, spreading the palms. Again, hitting the shins into, imagine that you're standing flat against the wall, pressing the shins into the imaginary wall, turning the shins inwards, and then hinging at the hips, coming forwards, hinging at the hips, and then reaching down and finding the blocks. Have the blocks underneath your hands, underneath your shoulders. So breathing even, deep inhalations. So in order to stretch out the calves, first you have to lift the thigh and push the front of the thigh really firmly into the back of the knee. And then you can lift, if you turn the thighs inwards at the same time, then you can lift the seat bones up. And then you lift the seat bones up and then you stamp from the back of the knee down into the calf. So if you lift your toes, it helps you activate the shins. So working from the thighs, pushing the fronts of the thighs into the backs of the thighs, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards so that the back of the thighs broaden outwards, and then lifting the seat bones up towards the ceiling. Pushing the kneecap through to the back of the knee. And then from the back of the knee down into the calf, into the heel. Lifting up into the chest, projecting the chin and the chest forwards. If you can go down lower, then do, but stay true to the action of the legs. Stay true to the action of the spine. So if coming down to the floor, keeping your toes lifted, it's quite hard work, isn't it? But it's all about activating the shins, pressing the shins through to the calves, projecting the chin and the chest forwards. It's about activating the legs. The more you activate the legs, the more you can activate the spine. If you can reach around the backs of your heels, maintaining that action of the legs, then do pushing the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards so that you broaden the back of the thighs outwards, so that you can lift the seat bones a little higher, projecting that into the chest, and then from lifting the seat bones, lengthen from the, push the kneecaps into the sockets, and then from the back of the knee, stretch down into the heels. Okay, and then just release your hands, bring your hands into your hips, and then just come up into Tadasana. And then just be in Tadasana for a moment. Just lift up into the chest, elevating the heart area, turning the palms all the way out so that you broaden the chest. Again, hit your shins back, hit your thighs back. Rotate the fronts of the thighs inwards and tuck the tailbone in. Breathing even, deep inhalations and exhalations. Relax for a second. Bring a couple of blocks onto the right side of your mat, and then just come back into the middle. Just lift up into the chest. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards your chest, and then step or jump your feet wide apart. Not quite as wide as for Trikonasana, but still nice and wide. Turn the left toes in steeply, and then rotate the the right foot all the way out. And at this stage, this back leg hip will get stuck. So pick up the heel of that back leg and then rotate the shin from the little toe side to the big toe side. Rotate the thigh from the little toe side to the big toe side. So that then when you bring the heel down, the hips are level. So just find your balance. So turning the thighs inwards, because we're going to do a forward bend, we're going to come forwards. So we want to turn the thighs inwards. So turning the thighs inwards makes the backs of the thighs broaden outwards. Up into the chest, hinging at the hips, keeping the back heel down if you can. Come forwards and then find the shin, find the blocks underneath your hands. So it's better to go high to start off with, just to really activate the legs. Maybe you turn that back, pick up the heel and turn that back heel out a little more. Spread the toe mounts from the big toe into the little toe. Activate the thighs, push the thighs through to the backs of the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs. Broaden the backs of the thighs by turning the fronts of the thighs inwards. Stamp the kneecap into the back of the knee, and then lengthen from the back of the knee down into the heel. You'll feel it much more acutely in the back leg, but maybe you can feel it in the front leg as well. Come down a little lower if you can, maintaining that extension of the spine afforded by the deep activation of the legs. If you can reach down to the floor, then do. Projecting the chin and the chest forwards. If your back becomes rounded like this and you can't, lengthen it and straighten it and go back to the blocks. Spread the toe mounds of that back foot. Turn the shin inwards, turn the thigh inwards, lengthen from the toes into the heels of that back foot. Projecting the chin and the chest forwards. And then bend the front knee, step forward to the back leg, pick up the blocks and then come up into Tadasana. Put the blocks on the left side and then come up into Tadasana. Breathing even, deep inhalations and exhalations. Just observe the energy of the body. Observe perhaps how the heartbeat has elevated a little. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards your chest, and then step or jump nice and wide with your legs, and then turn the right toes in, the left leg and foot all the way out. So again, picking up that back heel, turning it out. Slicing the fronts of the thighs inwards. So often we concentrate very much on the back leg, but then this front leg probably wants to turn outwards. So activate those legs so that the fronts of the thighs press through to the backs of the thighs and the fronts of the thighs turn inwards. Have your hands on your hips, lift up into the chest. Keeping that back heel down if you can. If it doesn't stay down, then just you can either put a block underneath it or just continue to stretch from the heel from the toes into the heel. So pressing the kneecaps through to the backs of the knees. Broadening from the back of the knee down into the calf. Accessing that action of the legs and then extending into the spine. Go down any lower, then do be on fingertips rather than heels of hands. Turning those legs inwards, projecting the chin and chest forwards. Spreading the toe mounds of the foot, especially that back leg. Stretch from the toes into the heel of that back leg. Just broadening the back of the calf. So good actions for tired legs. Opening up the energy of the legs, really working the back of the knee, working the back of the calf. Okay, and then bend that front leg, step yourself forwards, come up into a standing position. And then just be in Tadasana. Just breathing even deep inhalations and exhalations. Just listening to the breath. And then raise your arms. Bring your feet hip width apart and turn the toes in. If there's problems with your back, rather than coming all the way down, just bring your hands onto the back of a chair or onto a tabletop and just continue to work the legs in the way that we've been doing and stretch the front chest out in front. Otherwise, hook the thumbs into the crease of the elbows, extend your elbows up to the ceiling, activate those legs, and then hinge at the hips and hang down. So the more that you activate your legs, pushing the fronts of the thighs into the backs of the thighs, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, so you can lift the seat bones away from the backs of the calves, but backs of the thighs. That all gives you access into the spine. Push the kneecap through to the back of the knee, and then lengthen from the back of the knee into the heel. Just breathing even deep inhalations and exhalations. So just allowing the top of the body to hang down. Keeping those legs really firmly, deeply activated. So the top of the body can just hang down. And then release your hands down to the floor. Bring your hands into your hips and then come up into a standing position. Just coming back into Tadasana, just working deep Tadasana legs. Lifting, almost separating the torso from the legs. Lifting the legs up to the ceiling. Okay, and then release. So we're going to come down onto the floor, and we're going to do a couple of variations of dog down. So get a couple of blocks at one end of your mat and then fold the end of the mat up and just tuck the blocks in, so that pack it quite tightly, and then that's going to stay in place. So it should stay really firmly in position. And then I'll show you what we can do. So you come down onto your front with the toes just kind of touching the edge of the blocks, and then your fingers underneath your shoulders, and then you're going to come up into dog down and just bring the heel onto the edge of the block. Now at this stage, for this action, it's pretty strong in the legs, so you might want to just get hold of the ends of the mat just to give you that extra grip, and then stamp the heels down. Activate the legs as you would do in dog down, so pushing the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, broadening the backs of the thighs, lifting the seat bones. So gripping the edges of the mat, and then stamp the heels down and see, can you lift the toes off the floor? So, oh, my blocks are trying to move away, so maybe yours will as well. So it's not always the most ideal way of doing it, but it can work. So just stamp the heels down and try and lift the toes off the floor. So just do several of those, just trying to lift the toes off the floor. Activating the fronts of the thighs. Okay, bringing your toes down. And then bend your knees, sit back on your heels. So pretty strong on the legs, isn't it? But then that, when you sit back in virasana, maybe you notice how much energy you have released into the body, so that the body, maybe it felt tired at the beginning, it starts to feel really energized from the inside. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Just observing your energy. Okay, and then I'll show you what we're going to do next. So it's Ekapada Adho Mukha Svanasana. So you come down into dog down, you come up into dog down again, you're going to hold onto the edges of the mat just for extra grip, and then this time you're going to bring your feet together and then activate your legs as if in Tadasana, so turning the fronts of the thighs inwards. So then you're going to spread your left toes, and then you're going to raise your, this is where I'll run out of ceiling height, I'm going the wrong way around, so let me do it this way. So you're going to raise the right leg up, and then you're going to try and bring the standing heel down. But before you do that, I'll talk you into the pose a little more. Just come onto your knees, grip the edges of the mat. This is pretty strong, so just do it nice and gently. Step yourself back and then come up into dog down with the inner edge of your feet together. So do a good dog down to start off with. So push the fronts of the thighs into the backs of the thighs and turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. Now that's really important, because when you lift that right leg, the right hip is going to want to lift up with it. So the more you turn the front of that thigh inwards, the more you turn the back of the thigh outwards, the more even the hips will become. Just like we were doing in parsvottanasana. So just stay up on the tiptoes on the left foot, keep rotating that right leg from the little toe side to the big toe side and elevate it up towards the ceiling. And then once that leg is up in the air, flexing the heel, then see if you can bring the standing foot, the heel of that standing foot closer to the ground. So you're really stretching out the calf muscle. So it's quite strong, isn't it? And then come back to the center, lifting up into dog down, just resetting, spread the toe mounds of the right foot, and then raise the left leg up to the ceiling. Try and get the left leg in line with the body, keeping the front of the thigh turning, and then keeping that lifted leg up. See if you can bring the heel of the standing foot down towards the floor a little more. But it's really hard to bring the heel down and keep that leg lifted, isn't it? So it's a juxtaposition, trying to keep the hips level like they were in parsvottanasana. And then release the leg, come down onto your knees, and then sit back down into virasana. Just observe all of that lightness that you have released into the upper body, the lightness in the arms, the feeling that the skin has come to life. So come forwards, hinging at the hips, and just stretch forwards into Adho Mukha Virasana. Keeping the forehead down on the floor. Lengthening the tailbone down to the floor. Just listening to the sound of your breath as it exits and as it enters and as it exits. And then just rest your arms on the floor either side of your legs. So you come into the child's pose. Just supporting the rounding action of your back. If it becomes too heavy on your head, just consciously lengthen from the arms and the shoulders into the fingertips. Bring the palms of the hands down onto the floor. And then sit back on your heels again. Just feeling that lightness of energy inside the head, inside the neck and the shoulders. Just breathing even deep inhalations and exhalations. And then just sit yourself on your seat bones and stretch your legs out in front. Again, get your belt where you can reach it. Just roll over, move the buttock flesh out to the side on both sides. And then get the belt and then hook the belt around your feet. Have your feet hip width apart this time, now that we've warmed up. And then elevate your heart area up to the ceiling. Stamp the thighs, the fronts of the thighs down into the backs of the thighs. Lift up into the chest, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Breathing even deep inhalations and exhalations. Elevating the heart area upwards. And then gently come forwards just a little bit at a time. If you've got a bad back, then just stay at the first stage, just working to elevate the heart area upwards, hinging precisely from the hips, never from the lower back or from the upper back, keeping the back straight like it's just kind of super glued onto a plank of wood. Just keep creeping the hands forwards just a little bit at a time, activating the shins into the floor, lengthening from the backs of the knees into the heels, pulling the toes towards you, lifting up into the chest. So again, the more you activate the legs, the easier it becomes to activate the spine. So they're wholly dependent upon each other, lifting up into the chest. Maybe you can bend your arms out to the side. Maybe you can reach around the outsides of your feet. So coming into paschimottanasana, stamping the shins into the floor, stamping the thighs into the floor, keeping the head lifted, keeping the heart area lifted, bending at the hips, and then gently drawing the chest down to the floor, drawing the chin down to the floor, drawing the chin to the feet as well. Breathing even deep inhalations and exhalations. Okay, and then just come back to the center and then come into cross legs or half padmasana, whichever works for you. Just hold on to your knees and elevate your heart area up to the ceiling, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Just listen to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Just listening to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Lifting the heart area and then turning to the right side. Feeling that you really broaden and open the spine as you elevate the heart area upwards. And then come back to the center, lift up into the heart area and then turn to the left, drawing the abdomen across, the ribs and the shoulders. And then gently come back to the center. Just come down onto your back. And then if you've got a bolster, then you can use that. If you haven't, just see if you can use a cushion just to just to elevate the seat bones slightly. So I'll show you. So you can come down onto your back, have a bolster just underneath the lower back, and then I want you to get your belt and come right up onto the tops of the shoulders, bend your knees, hook the belt around your feet, and then elevate the legs up to the ceiling. And then pull the toes down towards your kneecaps and lengthen the heels up to the ceiling. Pushing the fronts of the shins consciously through to the backs of the shins, turning the fronts of the shins inwards, staying right up on the tops of the shoulders. So we're again lengthening out the calf muscles, lengthening from the back of the knee into the heel. Focusing on lengthening into the inner heel. So turning the fronts of the shins inwards makes you push the inner feet away. Breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Lengthening the backs of the calves. Just breathing evenly, deeply. We're not trying to bring the legs over the head. They should stay at 12 o'clock, but just keep the legs really activated. Lifting the chest. Keep the chest elevating up to the chin. So breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Just listening to the sound of the breath. And then just very gently bend your knees, unhook the feet, and then bring your feet onto the floor, and then just stay with the feet on the floor for a moment, with the bolster or the cushion underneath you. Just this restorative bridge pose. Just letting the legs relax, letting the top of the body relax, letting the arms relax. Just maintaining the lift of the chest gently so that your breath is open and moving freely. Okay, lift the seat bones up, move the bolster away, just slide the bolster away, and then just have the bolster for underneath your knees. Have a folded blanket underneath your head. Just move any equipment out of the way if it's stopping you from stretching out. Just have a quick look, make sure you're in a good straight line, and then release into the floor. So we've worked the legs really firmly. So let the legs completely relax. Unhooking the muscles of the legs and the arms. Just permitting the body to become heavy on the floor. And then out of that heaviness comes an energy that radiates out from the bones and into the muscles. Into the organs, that energy that radiates into the organs. And the flesh and the skin. And when you're ready to disturb yourself, just gently wriggle your toes, wriggle your fingers. And then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from top to bottom, from side to side, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then gently roll over onto your right side. And then stretch out into the top leg, come back up into the seat, into a seated position. And then come into cross legs with the hands in the masti, just a final spinal lift. Drawing the breath in through the nose, down into the abdomen. Be conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions and the forward bends and the twists bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet the chest. And then very gently release the backs of your hands down toward your knees. Palms facing upwards, and as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. So hopefully you feel as though you have really lifted your energy, given yourself a really good stretch of the legs, and got lots of good positive energy to put into the day. So thank you very much for joining me.